You don't understand what you're about to lose. Maya's voice was calm, but it cut through the tension in the room like a knife. Alexander King, the CEO of one of the largest tech firms in the country, looked up from his desk, his gaze cold. He had no time for the opinions of a low-level employee like her. She wasn't even supposed to be here, just another one of the temporary workers brought in to handle menial tasks. But Maya, standing in front of him, wasn't like the others. She wasn't afraid. "This contract," she said, pointing to the paper on his desk, "is a trap. If you sign it, your company will lose everything within 6 months." Alexander raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smirk. "Are you done? We don't have time for games." He waved his hand dismissively, clearly uninterested. But Maya didn't back down. She stepped forward, her gaze unwavering, her posture strong. "You think I'm just a maid, but I've read every line of this contract. I know what's at stake, and I know what you're about to do." Alexander leaned back in his chair, a smug expression on his face. He'd dealt with hundreds of employees like her, people with no power, no voice, no value beyond their service. And yet, this one seemed different. Her confidence was unsettling. She wasn't begging for his approval like the others. She wasn't trying to be invisible. Maya continued, her voice steady and clear. "If you proceed with this deal, your entire empire will collapse. You'll be left with nothing." The room went silent. No one spoke. Alexander's fingers hovered over the contract, but for the first time, he hesitated. His eyes narrowed, scanning the document. He'd been so sure of his plan, so convinced that his company's future was secure. But Maya's words had planted a seed of doubt. "What do you know about this?" he asked, his voice quieter now, tinged with suspicion. "More than you think," Maya replied. "I used to work for a firm that specialized in these kinds of deals. I've seen it all before. Companies like yours destroyed because someone didn't read the fine print." She took a deep breath, her heart pounding, but her voice didn't falter. "This isn't just a mistake, Mr. King. This is a disaster waiting to happen." Alexander didn't respond immediately. His fingers gripped the edge of the desk, his mind racing. Could she be right? Was she actually telling the truth? Maya's words echoed in his head, louder than the noise of the meeting room. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to meet hers. For the first time, he saw her not as a lowly employee, but as someone with knowledge, someone who understood the stakes in a way he hadn't realized. "I'll need to check this," he said finally, his voice uncertain. Maya simply nodded. "You don't have much time," she said softly. Alexander stood up, the tension in the air thick. "I'll handle this from here," he said, motioning for her to leave. As Maya turned to walk out of the room, she couldn't help but wonder if Alexander King would listen to her. Would he make the right choice, or would his arrogance be his downfall? The next day, Alexander King sat in his sleek, modern office, staring at the same contract Maya had pointed out. The words on the paper swam before his eyes, no longer just a jumble of legal jargon, but a ticking time bomb. He hadn't slept much, his mind racing with doubts. He had trusted the team to vet the deal, to make sure everything was foolproof. But Maya's words echoed in his mind, sharper than ever. "Your company will lose everything in 6 months." The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second stretching longer than the last. His assistant knocked gently before entering. "Mr. King, you have a call with the board in 15 minutes, she said, but her tone was different, hesitant, almost uncertain. Alexander nodded, not taking his eyes off the contract. "I'll be there," he said, his voice distracted. The assistant paused, glancing at the document in his hands. "Sir, if you don't mind me asking, are you okay?" she asked. It was an innocent question, but it hit harder than he expected. "I'm fine," he replied quickly, but the crack in his voice betrayed him. As she left, Alexander ran his hand through his hair, trying to push away the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. He had built this empire from the ground up, but this deal, could undo everything. The numbers didn't lie, but Maya's insight didn't sit well with him either. He opened his laptop, searching for any clue that might confirm her warning. The more he looked, the more his doubts grew. Every calculation, every assumption seemed like it could crumble with the slightest mistake. His phone buzzed, dragging him out of his spiraling thoughts. The call from the board was about to begin. He took a deep breath and clicked answer. "Mr. King," a voice on the other end began, cold and clipped. "The merger is the future. Are we proceeding or not?" Alexander's fingers hovered over the phone. He knew he could say yes. He could go ahead with the deal and hope for the best, but something inside him held him back. What if Maya's right? He glanced again at the contract. What if her warning was the only thing that could save him? Hold off on the merger, he said, his voice firm. There was a brief silence before the voice on the other end spoke again, this time with a tinge of frustration. Mr. King, this is a multi-billion-dollar deal. You can't just— I'm not going ahead with it, Alexander interrupted, his decision final. I need a second opinion. I'll let you know when we're ready. He hung up, the weight of his decision settling in his chest. Maya had been right. The deal had to be stopped, but now the real question was whether he could fix the damage already done. He stared out of the window, his mind already racing ahead to the next steps. This was far from over. If Maya could see through the surface, he would need to dig deeper. He picked up his phone and dialed the one number he hadn't thought to call before. Maya's. His heart raced as the phone rang. What would she say? What would happen next? The phone rang for the third time before Maya picked it up. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the name on the screen. Alexander King. The same man who had dismissed her the day before. The same man who had barely acknowledged her presence. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to expect. With a deep breath, she swiped to answer. Maya. His voice came through, calm but with a hint of urgency. I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Maya paused, processing the words. She had expected him to ignore her, to brush her off like everyone else who'd underestimated her. But now, he was asking for her advice. She felt a mix of surprise and caution. What's this about? She asked, her voice steady. The merger, he replied. I need your help. I've looked into it, and I think you were right. But I don't know where to go from here. Maya felt a rush of pride, but she quickly pushed it aside. This wasn't about her. This was about him, and the future of a company that could either thrive or fail. I'll meet you, she said, keeping her tone professional. But we need to figure this out quickly. She agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near his office, where they could talk privately. As she arrived, she saw him sitting at a corner table, looking out the window. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by a visible tension in his posture. He looked up when she walked in and stood, his expression unreadable. Maya, he greeted her, extending a hand. Thanks for coming. She shook his hand, feeling the weight of the moment. She had no idea where this conversation would lead, but she knew one thing. He had finally recognized her value. Let's get to it, Maya said, sitting down. I've reviewed the contract again, Alexander began. And I think you were right about the risks. But I need someone who can explain the details. I need someone who knows the business, the industry. Someone who isn't afraid to speak up. Maya took a deep breath, her mind already working through the problem. This was her chance to make a real impact. First things first, she said. You need to back out of the deal. It's too risky. And even if you think it's safe, there are hidden clauses that could cost you everything. Alexander nodded slowly, absorbing her words. I understand. But how do I fix this? How do I get my company back on track? You need to find new investors, people who understand the market and are willing to work with you. You'll have to renegotiate, and that won't be easy. But it's the only way to save the company and your reputation. Maya's words were blunt, but she knew they were the truth. Alexander stared at her for a moment, as if processing everything she had just said. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft but sincere. I underestimated you, Maya. I thought I could handle this on my own, but you were right. I need your help. Maya felt a small smile tug at the corner of her lips, but she kept it in check. I'm glad you see it now. But remember, you're not alone in this. You have a team, and they will follow your lead. But only if you show them that you're willing to make the hard decisions. Alexander nodded again, his eyes focused. I'll do whatever it takes. Thanks for being the one to open my eyes. Maya didn't respond right away. She just nodded, feeling the weight of her own words. This was just the beginning, but it was a start. And that was more than she could have hoped for. As they finished their coffee and left the cafe, Alexander seemed different. There was a new respect in his eyes, one that wasn't there before. Maya knew that this was her moment, the moment she had been waiting for, and she wouldn't let it slip away. Over the next few weeks, Maya worked closely with Alexander and his team to navigate the aftermath of the merger deal. Despite the pressure, she felt a sense of satisfaction as the company's situation slowly began to improve. Alexander, once distant and dismissive, had become more involved, seeking her guidance at every turn. They spent long hours in meetings, reviewing contracts, discussing strategies, and planning the future. Maya could tell that Alexander had changed. He no longer looked at her as just a temporary worker. He respected her expertise, and it was clear that he had learned to rely on her judgment. One morning, as they were going over the final details of a new investment plan, Alexander stopped, looking at her with a mixture of appreciation and something deeper. "Maya, I've been thinking," he began, his voice hesitant. "You've been more valuable to this company than anyone I've had working for me. I don't know where we'd be without you." Maya met his gaze, her expression neutral, but inwardly, she felt a rush of pride. She had always known her worth, but hearing it from Alexander, the CEO, made all the difference. "I'm just doing my job," she replied. Calmly. "No," he insisted, "you're doing more than that. You've saved this company, and you've saved me from making one of the biggest mistakes of my career. I owe you more than just gratitude." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She had never expected a moment like this, and yet here it was. Alexander was no longer the arrogant CEO who had ignored her. He was someone who saw her as an equal, someone who respected her. But Maya knew that this was just one step in a much longer journey. She had proven her worth, but there was still so much more to do. As they continued to discuss the future of the company, Maya's mind wandered for a moment. She had always dreamed of something more, something beyond the walls of this corporate world. But now, as she looked at Alexander, she realized that her place was here, making a difference, leading with her knowledge and expertise. Alexander finished his thought, snapping Maya out of her reverie. "I want you to stay with us, Maya. I need you on this team. We need people who understand the market, who can see the risks before they become problems. You've shown me that you can do that better than anyone else here." Maya was silent for a moment, weighing his words. She had always been a fighter, someone who never backed down from a challenge. But this was different. This wasn't just about proving herself. It was about something bigger. "I'll stay," she said finally, her voice steady and sure. "But only if you promise to always listen." Alexander's eyes met hers, and for the first time since they had met, she saw a glimmer of true respect in them. "I promise," he said. And in that moment, Maya knew that this was just the beginning. Her journey had only just started, and with Alexander's trust, she would be able to achieve everything she had always hoped for. She was no longer just a maid or a low-level employee. She was a force to be reckoned with, and she had earned her place at the table. Weeks passed, and Maya's influence on the company continued to grow. The more she worked alongside Alexander, the more she felt like she was finally where she was meant to be. The trust he had placed in her was something she had never experienced before in her career. She was no longer just a temporary employee or a maid. She was an integral part of the team, contributing her expertise in ways no one had expected. One afternoon, Alexander called her into his office. "Maya, I've been thinking," he began, his tone more serious than usual. She looked up from the paperwork she was reviewing and met his gaze. "You've transformed this company. Your insight, your attention to detail, it's been invaluable. I'm starting to see you as more than just an advisor. I need you to take on a bigger role here." Maya blinked, surprised. "A bigger role?" she asked, her voice steady but her heart racing. "Yes," he said, leaning forward. "I want you to take over the strategy department. You've earned it. You know the market, you understand the risks, and you've proven time and time again that you have the vision this company needs." Maya's mind raced. She had always been ambitious, but this was a huge leap. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I've been here for a few months, and this would be a big shift for me." Alexander smiled, a genuine smile that showed his respect. "I'm sure. You've already shown me that you can lead. You've been leading this company, whether I realized it or not." Maya took a deep breath. This was her chance. She had worked so hard to get to this point, and now the opportunity she had been waiting for was within her grasp. "I'll do it," she said, her voice full of determination. "I won't let you down." Alexander stood and extended his hand. "I know you won't," he said. Maya shook his hand firmly, feeling a sense of accomplishment settle in her chest. She had earned her place here, and now she would prove that she could take the company to new heights. Over the next few weeks, Maya dove headfirst into her new role. She revamped the strategy department, bringing in fresh ideas and streamlining operations. The results were immediate. Profits began to rise, and the company's reputation in the market strengthened. Alexander watched her from a distance, proud of the woman she had become. He had never expected someone like Maya to come into his life, but now he couldn't imagine the company without her. As the months went by, their professional relationship continued to evolve. They worked closely together, sharing ideas, discussing plans, and learning from each other. Maya knew that Alexander had become not just a boss, but a mentor, someone who had taught her the value of trust and leadership. But deep down, she also knew that the respect they had for each other had grown beyond just business. One evening, after a long day of work, they found themselves alone in the office, reviewing the final details of a new investment deal. Maya looked up at Alexander, who was sitting across from her, and for the first time, she saw something different in his eyes, something softer, more personal. "Maya," he said, his voice quieter than usual, "I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done for this company, and for me." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, but she didn't speak immediately. She simply nodded, knowing that this moment was more than just a passing compliment. It was a recognition of everything she had worked for. Alexander stood and walked over to her, offering his hand once more. "You've proven yourself in ways I didn't think possible," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "And I'm glad you're here." Maya shook his hand, but this time, there was a different connection between them. It wasn't just about business anymore. It was about trust, respect, and something that had quietly been growing between them, an understanding that neither of them had expected, but both of them had earned. As the night wore on, Maya knew that her journey was far from over. But for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be, by Alexander's side, leading the company, and with a future full of endless possibilities ahead. Maya sat at her desk late one evening, reviewing the latest financial reports. The company was thriving, and she had played a major role in its success. Alexander had given her the freedom to lead, and now, the results were speaking for themselves. But despite all the progress, she felt a sense of unease she couldn't shake. She had worked hard to get here, to prove herself, but there was still something missing. She had dreamed of a future where she was more than just a part of the company. She wanted to make her own mark, to build something bigger. As she sat there, lost in thought, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Alexander. "Can we talk? I need your advice on something important." Maya frowned, glancing at the clock. It was late, but she knew this was something she couldn't ignore. She stood up, grabbed her coat, and headed for Alexander's office. When she arrived, she found him pacing the room, his hands running through his hair. The confident, composed CEO she had come to know was gone, replaced by someone who seemed uncertain. "Maya, I'm in trouble," he said, his voice tight. "I thought I had everything figured out, but this new investment is a disaster waiting to happen. I'm not sure what to do." Maya felt a shift in the air. This was different. This wasn't a corporate problem. This was personal. "What happened?" she asked, her voice calm but filled with concern. Alexander took a deep breath before speaking. "I trusted the wrong people. I thought I could handle it on my own, but now everything is falling apart. I don't want to lose everything we've worked for." Maya stepped forward, her mind already working through the problem. She had seen him at his best, confident and in control. But now, he was vulnerable. She understood how it felt to be pushed to the edge and to question everything. "You're not alone in this," she said firmly. "You've built this company from the ground up, and you're not going to lose it because of one mistake." Alexander looked at her, his eyes searching for the reassurance she knew he needed. "But I need you to help me fix this. I don't know who to trust anymore." Maya took a deep breath. This was her moment. She had the knowledge, the experience, and the trust of the people around her. It was time to take the next step. "We'll figure it out," she said, her voice steady and strong. "But you need to start by letting go of the past. We can't change what's already happened, but we can control how we move forward." Alexander nodded, his shoulders relaxing slightly. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. "I'm ready to listen," he said, his voice filled with determination. Maya smiled, a feeling of pride washing over her. This was what she had worked for, what she had dreamed of. She wasn't just helping Alexander anymore. She was helping herself, too. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, and no matter how difficult it got, Maya knew that this was the beginning of something even greater. She had earned her place here, not just as an advisor, but as someone who could change the course of the company's future. Maya sat in the conference room, her hands folded in front of her as she watched Alexander work through the financial projections on his laptop. The company was slowly recovering from the near collapse caused by the bad investment, but the road ahead was still uncertain. There were days when Maya could feel the weight of every decision she had made and every risk she had taken. Alexander, once the confident CEO who ran the show, now relied on her expertise more than ever. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes, a look of exhaustion on his face. "I don't know how you do it," he said, his voice tired but appreciative. "You've kept this ship afloat when I was ready to sink it." Maya didn't reply immediately. Instead, she glanced at the reports on the table, reviewing the data in her mind. She knew it wasn't just about saving the company anymore. It was about creating something that would last, something that would continue to thrive even after the dust had settled. She had earned her place here, but she wasn't done yet. "You built this company, Alexander," she said finally. "All I've done is help you steer it through a storm. But now we need to make sure it's prepared for the future." He nodded, his eyes meeting hers. "And how do we do that?" "We need to look at what's working and what isn't," Maya replied, her voice firm. "We can't just keep running on autopilot. We need to innovate, to stay ahead of the curve. That's the only way we'll ensure the company's survival long term." Alexander leaned forward, his expression serious. "I'm listening. We need to start with the way we operate internally. Efficiency is key, and we need a team that's not just good at what they do, but willing to take risks. I want to bring in new leadership, new ideas. But more importantly, we need to build trust with our people." Maya's words were met with silence, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that meant Alexander was thinking deeply about what she had said. "Trust," he repeated. "You're right. I've spent so long focusing on the numbers and the bottom line that I've forgotten how important it is to trust the people around me." Maya smiled, relieved that he was seeing her vision. "It's not just about numbers. It's about the people who make those numbers happen. And how do we rebuild that trust?" Alexander asked, his voice softer now. Maya paused, thinking for a moment. "We start by being honest. No more secrets, no more pretending. We let our team in on the vision, let them understand where we're going, and make them feel like they're a part of it." Alexander looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "I'm starting to see it now. I never thought I'd get here, but with you by my side, I'm starting to believe we can do this." Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Alexander saw the potential of what they could create together. There was no turning back now. Together, they would build something lasting, something stronger than what it had been before. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time in a long time, Maya felt confident in their ability to face whatever came next. She had found her place, and she knew that with the right leadership and the right people, they could achieve greatness. Maya stood at the edge of the city skyline, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon. The glow of the city lights flickered in the distance, signaling the start of another busy night. It had been months since she took on the challenge of saving the company, and now, the transformation was undeniable. The trust she had earned, the changes they had made, and the new sense of purpose within the team were all part of something much bigger than she had ever anticipated. Alexander had come a long way since that first meeting. No longer the cold, distant CEO, he had become a partner, a leader who saw the potential in his people. And yet, as Maya stood there, the weight of what lay ahead seemed heavier than ever. She had proven herself in ways she hadn't imagined, but there were still challenges to face. There were moments when she doubted herself, moments when the pressure of it all seemed like too much. But every time she thought about giving up, she reminded herself of why she started this journey. The company had been at the brink of collapse, and now it was on the path to something great. She had been a part of that, and so had Alexander. Their bond had evolved beyond just business. They had built something that neither of them could have done alone. As the months passed, the company grew stronger, and Maya found herself stepping into new roles, taking on more responsibility. She had become a leader in her own right, respected by the team and admired by her peers. Alexander often sought her counsel, and their discussions now carried a sense of collaboration rather than just direction. One evening, as they were wrapping up a meeting, Alexander walked over to Maya, his expression serious. "I've been thinking," he began. "You've not only saved this company, Maya, you've changed it. You've changed me. I don't think I could have done this without you. Maya met his gaze, her heart pounding. She had heard these words before, but this time, they felt different. They felt real. We did this together, she replied. Alexander nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. I know, and that's why I'm asking you to take the next step with me. I want you to be my partner, not just in business, but in everything we do. You've earned it, and I believe you're the one who can take this company to the next level. Maya felt a lump in her throat as she processed his words. This wasn't just an offer. It was a recognition of everything she had worked for, everything she had become. She had fought to be seen, to be heard, and now, she was not only being recognized but elevated. She smiled, her eyes meeting his. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady and full of conviction. Let's do this. And with that, a new chapter began. Maya wasn't just a part of the company anymore. She was at the heart of its future, alongside Alexander. Together, they would continue to build, grow, and create something that would last. This was just the beginning, and with each step they took, they knew that nothing was beyond their reach. Maya sat in her office, staring at the skyline outside her window. The company was now thriving, and Alexander had been true to his word. The partnership they had formed had brought a new energy to the business, one that was impossible to ignore. They were leading the company together, and the results spoke for themselves. It had been a journey filled with highs and lows, but through it all, Maya had remained focused on what mattered most, building something that would last. She had fought for her place in this world, and now, she had found it. Alexander walked into her office, holding a folder in his hands. He looked at her with a smile, but there was something more in his eyes now, a quiet respect that hadn't been there before. I've been thinking, he said, his voice steady. We've come a long way, haven't we? Maya smiled back. We have, and we're just getting started. Alexander nodded, sitting down across from her. I know I've said this before, but I really mean it this time. I couldn't have done this without you. You've been more than just an employee to me. You've been a partner, a true partner, and I trust you more than anyone else in this company. Maya's heart swelled with pride at his words, but she kept her composure. She had earned this trust, but she also knew that this was just one chapter in a much bigger story. We've worked hard to get here, Alexander, she said. And now, it's time to take things to the next level. Alexander leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. What do you mean? Maya took a deep breath. I think we need to expand. Not just in terms of profits, but in terms of impact. We've built a strong foundation, but now it's time to build something that can change the industry. Something that goes beyond just numbers. Alexander sat back in his chair, clearly processing what she was saying. You want to innovate. You want to lead. In a way that no one else is. Maya nodded. Exactly. We've done the groundwork, but we need to push the envelope. We need to be bold. Alexander stared at her for a moment, then a smile slowly spread across his face. I like the way you think.